So I am 21 years old and have been friends with a 21-year-old male named Mike, fake name, for 16 years. We became friends officially in kindergarten, but our parents were college friends. I honestly can't even call him a best friend. He's like a sibling, and in a way we were raised as siblings. Group family holidays, sleepovers, family vacations on both sides. At one point, we even all lived together for a year. I'm saying this because I know some people will ask. No, there have been no crushes or feelings on either side at all. We haven't kissed, confessed feelings, or had crushes. It's been strictly sibling-like, and I'm saying that now because of what Mike's girlfriend has been saying. Mike and I share an apartment together near campus since we both attend college together. Around 7 months ago, Mike met his girlfriend, a 21-year-old female named April, fake name. Now, I thought we got along okay. I've only met her a couple of times because she has anxiety, but I had no problem at all with her until recently, besides some minor things. Sometimes, she would interject when Mike would call me his sister. It wasn't always, but normally she would say, "Well, technically you aren't siblings," which is 100% true, but it's how we viewed each other since we were kids. So almost a month ago, my class got canceled, so I came home early. I walked in, and right on the couch were Mike and April having intimacy. I screamed, ran to my room, and frantically yelled at Mike via text. He apologized and said he thought I would be gone longer. I made him clean the couch. All good, right? No, April for some reason got upset and felt that, in her words, I did that on purpose, despite it never happening before, and that it was inappropriate of me to walk in on them. Again, this was in the living room. Absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. But I moved on because it's not a big deal. Embarrassing, but nothing crazy. Anyway, Mike has been stressed recently because April had been asking him to distance himself from me. I thought she was just embarrassed, which I'd understand, so I tried being friendly and apologized. Well, last weekend, Mike sat me down and basically said that I had to move out because his girlfriend was upset with me living with him. I was floored. I got so upset. I don't think I've yelled and cried that much in my life. The basics are that he doesn't want me to move out, but he's pressured by his girlfriend, and he really loves her, so he wants to make her happy. He thinks that this shouldn't change our friendship and that he's just putting some distance between us. See, if he had asked me to move out, I'd understand. Okay, yeah, maybe you want to take your relationship to the next level, but it was a demand. And not only that, he wanted to put space between our friendship. It was so hurtful. I've known him for 16 years, and that's it? I'm gone for someone he's known for 7 months? I said he was choosing a short relationship over his sister, and that I didn't want him to contact me if he was going to be like that. He said I was overreacting, but I called my parents and got them to pick me up. Literally, thank God they don't live far away, but what if they did? What did he expect me to do? Just sleep outside or something? Anyway, I obviously had to tell my parents what was going on since they had to pick me up, and I was an emotional mess. I told them everything, which caused a bit of an argument when they went to pick up some of my things the next day. They called Mike's parents and kind of chewed them out a little, and from my understanding, they called Mike and did the same. Mike messaged me to say that he was upset I couldn't be civil and that he feels like I'm throwing away a friendship. I blocked him shortly after. I've taken some time off classes, but I'm so hurt and upset. It hurts that he could just throw me away so easily. I don't think I did anything wrong telling my parents, but I think it may have crossed a line when they called Mike's parents. Like I said previously, our parents are really close. And it's kind of messed with their friendship now. His parents have been really kind and apologetic, even though it's not their fault. And a part of me feels like I made this into a bigger mess. Also, I know I didn't have to leave. Mike and I both pay an equal amount of rent for the apartment, but I didn't want to stay in a place where I wasn't wanted. It would have just made it difficult, and worst case scenario, he would leave, which would have put a financial strain on me. To add, I read you all loud and clear. Thank you for waking me up. I've talked to my landlord, and she said that she was uncomfortable with April moving in because she doesn't know her. I understood, so I am moving back tomorrow. I unblocked Mike and informed him. I explained that until our landlord says otherwise, I'm staying. Either he can leave and get a new place while keeping paying the rent, or we can end our agreement together, and if our landlord agrees, they can start one. He replied, "Okay, we can talk about it tomorrow." So we will see. Thank you all so much for motivating me. I really had no idea how serious this situation could be until you all let me know how wrong I was being. I don't care if it's uncomfortable, I'm not wasting my money. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Honestly, I don't understand people who destroy lifetime relationships because of a new partner. I have seen a couple with my own eyes and still don't get it. 20 years of friendship obliterated by a new partner in the span of a couple of months. I have always wondered what goes on in their minds. Comment 2. Not the idiot homeboy is thinking with his inappropriate parts. Your friend is a very weak person, and a complete fool if he thought kicking you out to appease a brand new girlfriend wouldn't negatively impact your relationship. What a dolt. Now for the update. A few weeks have gone by since the fallout with Mike and April. Yeah, that's what I'm calling it now. I'm still living in the apartment, but honestly, it feels like I'm living in a storage closet. Mike didn't reach out to me after the incident. Not a text, not a call, nothing. I guess he was too busy trying to figure out how to replace his lifelong friend with his new girlfriend. So I spent more time at home, focusing on personal projects, mostly just binging on Netflix and avoiding any and all social interaction. Self-care? Am I right? Then last weekend, things got worse. I found out Mike and April invited friends over for a game night without even telling me. I only found out when a mutual friend sent me a screenshot of a group chat where they were all planning it. Like, how am I the last to know about this? My name is literally on the lease. I felt so uncomfortable but decided to stay in my room during the gathering. What else could I do? Join in on the fun while my best friend and his new girlfriend act like I don't exist? No thanks. I was trying to pretend like I was into my new obsession of knitting when I overheard Mike joking about the old times we shared, like when we were actually friends. The laughter from the living room was loud and hurtful. It felt so bad. Then Mike texted me, asking if I wanted to join. Can you believe that? I just ignored it, obviously. And I noticed he and April were becoming more affectionate, which just bothered me. Seeing them kiss or hold hands made me want to throw up. My parents visited for a weekend dinner, and they asked about Mike and April. They were concerned about the rift between families. Yeah, that's what my mom called it, a rift. Like they were talking about a tornado or something. My parents suggested inviting Mike and April over for dinner to clear the air. I reluctantly agreed, thinking it might help. Spoiler alert, it didn't. The dinner was so awkward, and Mike and April showed little interest in reconciliation. At one point, April made a snide comment about real family. Like, are you serious? I snapped back, saying I'd been family long before she arrived. I don't know what came over me, but I was just so over her crap. The conversation escalated with Mike trying to mediate but only making things worse. Dinner ended with everyone feeling frustrated and annoyed. After that, I decided to take a break from social media to avoid any updates about Mike and April. I just couldn't handle it. A week later, I received a text from Mike asking to meet. So we met at a local diner where Mike seemed distant and distracted. I could tell he didn't want to be there. He revealed that April insisted on moving in with him, creating a permanent divide between us. That's how he put it, a permanent divide. He also mentioned that April was upset about the dinner, claiming I was rude. I tried to explain my side, but Mike cut me off, saying April was more important. I wanted to scream. Like, really? More important than a 16-year friendship? A few days later, I found out from a friend that Mike and April were planning a trip together. My friend mentioned that Mike was talking about starting fresh with April. I nearly lost it. Starting fresh? What, so he's going to forget about me? I reached out to Mike's mom, hoping for some support. I thought she would understand, you know? Nope. She defended April and said she was just trying to protect her son. Apparently, keeping his best friend around was dangerous. I learned that Mike and April were planning to host a holiday party at their new place. I decided not to attend, knowing it would only hurt more. A few weeks later, I found out through a mutual friend that Mike proposed to April. I just can't believe how quickly he's moved on. It's like I never existed in his life. I've been feeling so lost and alone, but I'm trying to focus on myself. I started going to the gym and even signed up for a painting class, trying to find a new hobby or something to make me feel better. I'm just so done with all of this. Edit. I have known Mike's family for a long time. They were disappointed in Mike's choice but supported him. I never expected April to affect our friendship like this. It hurts. Am I the idiot for considering divorce after my wife's explosive reaction to a simple request? My wife, a 30-year-old female, has had anger issues throughout our entire relationship, which has lasted 6 years, and we have been married for 3 of those years. We have talked about having children. I want them, but she is not ready yet. We both use protection until we are both ready. I admit that at the start of our relationship, I thought, I can change her, or my love can change her. Weekly, she would scream, cursing at me and calling me names like a hole, beach, DK, CT, ST, trash, rear D, and many more, sometimes in combination. She never hit me directly, but acted aggressively nonetheless. She has blocked me from leaving the room when she was treating me poorly, held onto my shirt collar and pulled me close to yell in my face, hit walls and doors, and tried to break down doors if I attempted to separate myself to calm down. She always had an excuse as to why her treatment of me was acceptable, usually claiming I was the problem or that it was due to her job. When she calmed down, she would feel remorseful for a few days to a week, but inevitably, she would return to screaming and name-calling. A year after we got married, she asked to quit her job to take care of me and the house. She claimed that this would give her time to work on herself, since she wouldn't be in the stressful work environment she had been in, which was a call center, and wouldn't be as angry. I, ever hopeful, agreed because I could afford it and saw benefits in her handling most of the house cleaning duties. Her treatment of me continued, despite her not working. I never instigated these events, but as they progressed over the years, I am ashamed to say that I have retaliated in kind. I have yelled back and called her similar names, hoping she might realize how hurtful it is. I have expressed to her many times that the way she treated me was unacceptable, that the way I respond to her treatment is not how I want to act, and that I didn't want to live like this. She has attended a handful of therapy sessions and sometimes shows promise for change. We also attended a few sessions of couples counseling, although it was ineffective, and I canceled future appointments after a rather nasty fight that she started, deciding it wasn't worth the cost. I recently had surgery on my foot and was unable to do much. I asked her to bring in the grocery delivery later in the day, as she had agreed to do when we placed the order. She went off on me, saying that she shouldn't have to do it, that she just wants to sit and watch television, claiming she never gets a chance to relax, even though I had been trying hard to be as self-sufficient as possible. She screamed at me for an hour, and I just sat there and took it, too tired and medicated to do much more. She did eventually bring in the order. I've realized that there is a good chance she will never completely change, or at least not change significantly within the next few years, and that I do not want to spend even another year with her as she is now. How can I trust she won't blow up at me again the next time I have a medical event and need her support? I want to file for divorce, but feel as though I need to give her one more chance before I go through with it. I am also honestly nervous about how she will respond when or if I do, whether it be with anger or despair, and whether she might try to harm herself, as she has attempted previously when I tried to break it off with her. Would I be the a-hole to give her an ultimatum that I am sure she would fail, which is to stop screaming at me and calling me names, or I will file for divorce? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. 6 years hasn't been enough to change her behavior. Quitting her job hasn't been enough to change her behavior. Therapy hasn't been enough to change her behavior. You having surgery and not being able to walk, and so you asked for help, hasn't been enough to change her behavior. What is it going to take for you to realize that she's not going to change her behavior? An ultimatum isn't going to work. She'll probably explode on you. Time to internalize the fact that you are in a hurtful relationship. Hire an attorney. Work with that attorney on an exit plan. Do not let her know you are divorcing her. Comment 2. I want to file for divorce, but feel as though I need to give her one more chance before I go through with it. Your choice. I'm also honestly nervous as to how she will respond when or if I do. Badly, obviously. If I had a partner that was angry and aggressive, I wouldn't have the divorce talk. I'd find somewhere else to live and move out when she isn't home. Would I be the antagonist to give her an ultimatum? I'm sure she would fail. Yes, you're just playing games to avoid the inevitable. What you should be doing is playing smart so you end things as cleanly as possible. Now, for the update. A few days after the grocery drama, I was at home and it felt super tense. I couldn't take it. I decided to go to my parents' place for dinner. At least there, I wouldn't have to pretend everything was fine. My mom asked how my recovery was going and how things were at home. I just said things were challenging but manageable. She knows me too well, though. My parents could see that I was distant and worried. After dinner, while we were cleaning up, my dad casually mentioned that he had a friend who was a therapist. I know he meant well, but I just wanted to be anywhere but there. I went back home feeling just as bad. My wife was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my existence. It hurt after a long day. A few days later, I got a text from my sister inviting me to a barbecue at her place. I asked my wife to come with me, but she snapped that she didn't want to socialize. I went by myself and had a great time with family and friends. But I noticed my sister's husband, Tom, acting weird, whispering to our cousin. When I asked what was going on, my sister brushed it off and changed the topic. On the drive home, I got a text from my wife saying she was going out with friends. The next day, I found a receipt from a bar in her purse when I was looking for my wallet. I confronted her about it, and she completely exploded, accusing me of snooping. I tried to explain how I found it, but she was just yelling over me. I decided to plan a little surprise for her. I called a local florist and arranged for a bouquet to be delivered to the house with a note saying, "Hope you enjoy your nights out." The flower delivery guy showed up while we were in the middle of another argument. She opened the door and he handed her the flowers, reading the note out loud. Her face went from angry to shocked in an instant. I took the moment to tell her I wouldn't tolerate her behavior anymore. She tried to change the subject, but I pressed on. I brought up the possibility of separating, and she got angry again. The argument escalated, and she threatened to leave if I didn't drop it. I told her to go if that's what she wanted. She stormed out and slammed the door behind her. The following week, I got a call from my sister about a family gathering for the 4th of July. I reluctantly agreed to go. At the barbecue, I noticed Tom whispering to another family member again. I asked my sister what was going on, and she reluctantly admitted that Tom was moving out. Later on, I caught my wife texting someone during the event, her face flickering with emotion. When I approached her, she quickly hid her phone, which raised my suspicions even more. I decided to leave the party early. I came back home. Her stuff was still all over the place, and I made a plan to consult a lawyer. I started drafting an email to a legal firm, preparing to take the next step. Edit. I sent the email but didn't get a response for a few days. My wife returned home shortly after and seemed to be in a better mood. She even apologized for her recent behavior and said she was ready to work on our marriage. I was skeptical, but didn't want to shut the door completely. I agreed to try couples therapy again, hoping it would help us. I still haven't heard back from the lawyer, but I'm waiting for a response before deciding on our next steps. Am I the idiot for telling my stepson he can't call his baby sister his baby and ignoring my wife's feelings? My husband and I have 4 kids combined. They are a 14-year-old boy, an 11-year-old girl, an 8-year-old boy, and a 10-month-old girl. Well, my 14-year-old and my husband haven't gotten along recently. It started roughly last year when my son's biological father reached out to my son directly and told him he wanted to meet him. He signed away all his rights when he was born and never met him. But my son knew who he was and often looked at his Facebook page. My husband said no, that he could meet him when he was 18. I wasn't there for the conversation. But regardless, when I found out, it caused a huge blow-up fight to the point of nearly divorcing because my husband had it in his head that I didn't respect him, and neither did my son, apparently. To be fair to him here, my son's father is not a good person. He's an alcoholic who consistently has his license revoked for failure to pay child support and driving while intoxicated. So, due to this, my husband told my son he wasn't allowed to meet his father until he was an adult, but the issue was that he made this decision without me. I would have arranged for a meetup in a public place, at least because my son wants to meet him. Regardless, my son's father backed out, stopped responding to messages, so in the end, he made the decision for everyone. But my son still has held it against my husband, understandably. The relationship has never been the same. We are all in therapy now. On to the issue. My son took off for all-boys summer camp in mid-June. It's 3 hours away, and my father owns it. He allows my son to work for him or just relax at camp. He's been doing it for years. I did not see my son at all until 2 days ago when camp let out net. My entire family arranged to meet up at an amusement park to welcome my son and my father back home. As soon as my son got out of my dad's car, he immediately ran to my vehicle and said, "Where's my baby?" My husband snapped. He said, "Don't call her your baby, that's weird." My son asked how it was weird, and he said, "Because she's my baby. Don't be weird." I guess I saw red in that moment because, like, his youngest son, 8, his daughter 11, even his mom, they all call our daughter their baby, and he never says anything. So, in front of everyone, in my defense, I wasn't thinking about that. I said, "I would argue that you're the one being inappropriate because you're insinuating that it's being said that I had a child with my oldest child." His face immediately went beet red, and he said, "That's not what I meant at all." So I asked him what he meant then, because he never says anything to anyone else when they call his baby theirs, and said that if it's weird that my son says it, then it's weird when the women in his family say it too. He didn't say anything, so I laid out a final, "Don't be inappropriate toward the dynamics with my children again." He didn't end up going to the amusement park. He sat in the car. He was silent the entire ride home. When we got home, he said that I embarrassed him on purpose to be vindictive, that he wasn't being inappropriate at all by telling my son to stop saying it was his baby. I beg to differ, and I don't feel bad for embarrassing him either because he very clearly had it in his head that my son was insinuating that he, I don't know, had a baby with me, or else he never would have made a comment like that to my child, all while never telling his family to stop, or that it's weird when they say it. Am I the jerk? He expects me to apologize, and I've told him that's not happening. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You should definitely discuss this during family counseling. To me, it seems like your husband was perfectly fine embarrassing your son in front of the family and ruining his day. Literally, his day where you were welcoming him home. The day wasn't about your husband. He seems to have an issue with your son and is trying to exert his authority by being overbearing. He needs to let up. Your son is going through enough with his biological father already. It would be much better if your husband were there to support your son as he tries to navigate a relationship with his father instead of trying to prevent it altogether and without even discussing it with you. I couldn't imagine making that kind of proclamation about our children's lives without discussing it with my wife first. It has nothing to do with being a step-parent versus a biological parent, but everything to do with being a co-parent. Comment 2. My oldest son is 9 and just asked to meet his biological father. I've got sole legal and residential custody. They haven't been in the same room since my son was 4 months old. And his biological father had a drug and alcohol problem, as well as physical and intimacy abuse towards myself and other women. My husband has been in my son's life since he was 3. When my son brought it up, I freaked a bit. Granted, the guy was my aggressor, and together we discussed how to handle it. I would reach out and initiate a public meeting, and my husband said if it falls through, then he and my son will go out for a father-son date, just the two of them. Now, for the update. A couple of days passed since the fight at the amusement park. Things weren't exactly great, if you know what I mean. My husband was acting like a caveman, spending all his free time in the garage tinkering with his tools. Like, I get it, you love your tools, but can you not avoid me completely? Every time I tried to talk to him, it was like really hard to get him to respond. He'd grunt a one-word answer and go back to whatever he was doing. So, that was fun. The kids went back to school and we got back into our routine, but it felt like we were all super tense. My 14-year-old son was particularly quiet, which is saying something because he's a teenager. I got a text from him one day asking if he could invite a friend over for the weekend. I didn't have a problem with that, but then he dropped the news. He wanted to hang out with his biological father too. Like, seriously? My son hasn't seen that guy in years, and now that he's trying to reconnect, my husband's gonna freak out. But I didn't say anything because, honestly, what could I say? Friday evening rolled around, and my son's friend arrived. They were super pumped about their gaming marathon, which was set up in the living room. I was kind of glad they were making some noise because the house was too quiet, but not too loud because my husband was due home from work. He rolled in late, of course, and you could just feel his irritation when he walked through the door. It was like he had a dark cloud following him around. The kids were making their usual noise, laughing, yelling, and being teenagers, and he snapped at them to keep it down. My son, who was already on edge, stormed off to his room. I had it with my husband's attitude, so I confronted him about his tone. Big mistake. We got into another argument right in front of the kids, who were probably just trying to enjoy their Friday night. At one point, my son texted his biological father about the argument, like, "Help, my home life is a mess." The biological father offered to pick him up for a weekend outing, and my son was like, "Yes, please." Saturday morning, the biological father showed up to pick up my son. He looked just as uncomfortable as my son did. Like, I get it, you're here to pick up your kid, but don't act like you're about to step into a super awkward situation. My husband insisted on talking to the biological father before he took my son out. They had this tense exchange outside, which I could see from the window. My son was standing nearby, looking like he wanted to disappear into the ground. The biological father left with my son, promising to bring him back Sunday evening. I spent the day cleaning up the mess from the previous night and trying to distract myself from the brewing storm in my house. My daughter asked about her brother later in the day and why he wasn't home. I had to explain that he was just hanging out with a friend, even though that was a total lie. I didn't want to dive into the details of the conflict because I didn't want her to worry. My husband came home late that night, still frustrated. We had another one of those silent dinners where you could hear a pin drop. It was delightful. Sunday evening came, and my son came back with stories about his adventures with his biological father. It was like he couldn't stop talking, and I don't blame him. He probably had the time of his life, and it was a nice escape from our reality. My husband listened, but didn't say much. His expression was unreadable, which is always comforting. We sat down for dinner, but the mood was still heavy. Then my husband finally spoke up and asked my son how he felt about the weekend. My son thanked him for allowing the trip, but then mentioned wanting to see his biological father again. Cue the heated discussion about boundaries and what was best for the kids. My husband was like, "No way," and I was like, "We really need to talk about this." I insisted that we come to some kind of agreement as a family, and this was the time to do it. The kids were growing up, and we needed to address this blended family dynamic sooner rather than later. We agreed to sit down together and discuss it all more openly. My husband reluctantly agreed, but I could tell it was going to be a battle. Afterward, the atmosphere felt slightly lighter, but it was still a long road ahead. I just hope we can figure this out because I'm tired of the drama. To answer a few questions, my son hadn't seen his biological father in years. We didn't know how the meeting would go. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.